Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Killers Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today, we have 3 cards that we need to talk about: a new Produce SSR for Toru, Support SSR for Mei, and Support SR for Hinana. Keep in mind that Toru and Mei are both limited, meaning that they may not return for a long time, so if you're a fan of Toru or Mei, I recommend pulling for this banner now. Starting things off, we have Toru. Well, I guess 2 months is a fair enough wait between Toru content, so we can let this one slide. Doing away mostly with the water motif, Toru 3 takes a lot of what made Toru 2 and Madoka 2 good, and spins it into a pure visual single target card. So she's in effect the halfway point between those two. She sports all the modern card design for limited cards, meaning her passives are great, and her appeals are very solid. I haven't done a card comparison in a while, since a lot of cards have been designed to be very distinctly different from some of their other SSRs, but Toru 3 is very mechanically similar to Toru 2 right off the bat. All you really do is change the AoE appeals to slightly stronger single target appeals, and continue the trend with successful reaction to buff, which results in this Toru. She has arguably better passives maybe, and the addition of the 4-star passive helps a ton in rounding things out. Her roles are Nuker, Buffer, Evasion, and Reaction, and she is a center. I highly recommend pulling for this Toru if you're a fan of Nocchill or want to try out Visual Nocchill. Toru's initial appeal is a visual 3.5 that buffs your visual by 100% per successful reaction. This lasts for 3 turns each, and you can have up to 2 stacks of it from this appeal. The Link appeal requires only Hinana, and it's a visual 2.5. At max, she unlocks a visual 5.0 appeal that applies the same 100% visual buff per successful reaction, except now they last 3 turns each, and you can have 3 at maximum from this appeal. Her Link appeal, which requires only Madoka and Koito, is also a visual 2.5. Toru's 1-star passive is a visual 50% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or later. This has a 35% chance to activate twice. Her 2-star passive is a visual 50% up and evasion 20% up that requires an active visual buff. This also has a 35% activation chance, but can activate up to 3 times. Toru also unlocks a visual plus 50 uncap at 2 stars. For 3 stars, Toru unlocks a visual plus 50 uncap and visual plus 150 uncap, and at 4 stars, she gains a passive that is visual 75% up and requires your turn count to be 4 or later. This has a 30% chance to activate 3 times. Toru's memory appeal, once maxed, is a visual 120% buff until you take damage, and links into a visual 3.0. For the support recommendations, new Koito along with Madoka actually pair up fairly well, so having these two are a huge boon for your build. Pairing up Fuyuko and Mei, if possible, can help generate a fair bit of SP, and the last few supports can really be up to you. I think Mamimi and Natsuha are some pretty good generic examples, but there may be more other ones that you can use later on. As for the alternatives, there aren't a whole lot of visual supports at the moment who truly help out Visual Nocchill, so take what you can. Kiriko, for example, has fairly low % odds of being useful, but Attention Down can sorta work if you can't build up that reaction. As for the team recommendations, I'll be honest, Visual Nocchill might not be ready yet. Hinana 2 has an okay amount of reaction, as does Madoka, but it needs some timely passives to proc if you want to make it last. It's definitely almost there. It might just be looking for a new Madoka. The biggest hurdle I think you'll reach with Visual Nocchill is deciding what your ideal turn order is going to look like. Hinana can reach up to 50% reaction if Koito and Toru have appealed, but you also want to save Toru for after Madoka and Koito have appealed. I guess what you can do is go for Koito to Madoka to Toru to Hinana. So Koito's 4-star appeal, Madoka's 4-star appeal, Toru's 4-star appeal, and then Hinana's 4-star appeal, as Hinana will get to reapply reaction as Madoka's will run out after Toru's turn. From there, you can decide to use Toru's 2nd appeal for the Link and possible extra visual stacks, or go for your memory appeal. It's a pretty specific rotation, but it could possibly work out depending on the situation. On to the grading. Toru earns, as a center, anywhere from B to S+. If you recall, I gave this exact grade to Koito too, which is not too surprising considering these are the same memory appeals. Many of my thoughts still stand when it comes to these types of memory appeals. On paper, they sound phenomenal. In practice, you might find yourself losing the buff immediately without the right setup, and Visual Nocchill needs at least one more piece to solve that issue. As a unit though, very easy A+ to SS. Again, like Koito, I think Toru is overall a powerful unit. It's worth mentioning that alongside Toru 3, Nocchill now all have access to Grad. This means that every single Nocchill card is going to be significantly stronger thanks to having access to Grad buffs. So Toru 2, Madoka 2, Koito 2, they're all going to be much stronger, as is this Toru. So while the Toru grade may seem a little high, since she could technically be considered a weaker Toru 2, you also have to consider that they have a much better produce mode to work with, making Toru 2 that much better as well. Kinda scary to think about. Much of the strength of this card will absolutely depend on how often you can get Toru's visual buff stacks up there, as you can again reach a feasible 500% visual buff before considering passives just through her 2 appeals. Her passives are good, though some might argue they could be a little slow depending on the fest level. Ignoring that, Toru has an easy 6.0 appeal and a slightly harder 7.5 appeal, and they're definitely great ones to have. Next we have Mei. Straight Light find their vocal Mei support, just not as the permanent card people maybe wished for. New Mei is designed heavily after the Dance Fuyuko support from just a little while back, so many of the positives of Fuyu carry over to Mei. She's going to be a great addition to Vocal Stray Light, especially with the somewhat generous amount of SP she can generate in a good run. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promised Recovery, Rest Boost, and Stamina support, and her unique support skills are Unit Mastery SP, reaching plus 10 at level 80, Vocal Mastery Vocal Limit, reaching plus 5 at level 75, and Vocal Mastery Stamina, also reaching level 5 at 75. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Vocal 3.0, and gaining a vocal buff, or rather, multiple vocal buffs. At level 60, she has a vocal 1% up for 3 turns, 5 turns, and 8 turns, and by level 80, it becomes a vocal 5% up for 3 turns, 5 turns, and 8 turns. Her TFD idea is vocal, and her insight token for Grad is mental. Mei's 1-star passive is a vocal 40% up that requires an active vocal buff. This is a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a vocal 100% up that requires 5 or more active vocal buffs. This has a 30% chance to activate 1 time. Her 3-star uncap is a vocal plus 100, and her 4-star appeal is a vocal 3.0 that applies a vocal 20% buff for 5 turns, and a vocal dance 10% up for 10 turns. Her event passive is a vocal 30% up that requires Mei on your team, and it has a 20% chance to activate twice. Mei, I think, earns a very easy double S. She is very strong. And just like Fuyuko, Mei cements herself as an incredibly potent vocal support. She's an incredible option for Vocal Stray Light, and even someone like Nocchill can potentially pull off getting 5 vocal buffs with a 100% passive. While the SP loss from Unit Mastery might still favor cards like Kogane over Mei, Mei is definitely a top contender still. I highly recommend pulling for this Mei. Lastly, we have Hinana. Our Collabofest SR this time around is Hinana, who takes a lot of cues from Madoka's Collabofest SR. Hinana being a vocal unit will help serve as a stepping stone for those who missed out on rookie Hinana, though naturally PEEPS will be much weaker. If you just need a Hinana idea or insight, she's fine enough. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promised Recovery, Rest Boost, and Trouble Guard, and her unique support skill is Vocal Mastery Vocal, reaching plus 5 at level 65. Her TFD idea is Vocal, and her insight token for Grad is Dance. Hinana's 1-star passive is a vocal 12% up that requires you to be in the vocal position. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a vocal 20% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or later. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a vocal plus 50, and her 4-star appeal is a vocal 2.3 that raises your vocal by 25% until you take damage. And her event passive is a vocal 8% up that requires Hinana on your team, and it has a 30% chance to activate twice. Hinana earns a C-. The only reason I would say Hinana is weaker than a card like Madoka, who I gave a C, despite having almost all the same functionality, is the slight nerf to her 2-star passive by changing it from before to after turn 3, and the vocal 25% buff might not be as valuable to most players as Judge Influence down, especially when it comes to side modes like Collabofest. She's a filler unit nonetheless, but debatably useful depending on your team. You might as well farm for Hinana while she's here. And that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I do know that only about maybe a third to even sometimes 25% of the viewers are subscribed, so feel free to help bump that number up just a little bit. Next time we'll be talking about whatever banner comes next, so let's look forward to it together. Until next time, I've been Cho, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.